Welcome to Being That Girl Boss, the podcast by girl bosses for girl bosses, where we talk about pop culture, the internet, and business with some amazing and inspiring women from all different walks of life. Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to Being That Girl Boss. Today's episode is the final episode of the Female Filmmaker series, and while I'm really sad it's ending, I cannot wait for you guys to listen to our guest today speak. Her name is Holli. She's part of the minds behind the Goddess Project. She's so amazing, and I enjoyed interviewing her so much. So come along and listen as we talk about her film, what she did, what it's like working with a female crew, and join me afterwards for the rest of the episode. So let's get into it. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's me, and I am back with the third and final part of the Female Filmmaker series here on my podcast with the last but certainly not least. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Holli Rae, and I'm an artist and filmmaker from Los Angeles, California.
So, when did you start filmmaking?
I started filmmaking when I was about 19 years old. I kind of have always loved exploring every sort of artistic medium I could get my hands on. But yeah, I really started to work with film as a medium, specifically when I was about 19, when I met my friend Sarah, who was a film editor, and she and I started kind of making music videos and different videos with our friends. We were really into fashion and art and music at the time. So we loved like combining all those things and just like creating all kinds of weird artistic expressions.
That's amazing. So what are some of the other projects you've done before we get into your biggest one, the Goddess Project, which a lot of this episode is about?
Yeah, so prior to making this film, actually, I wore a lot of different hats. I worked as a graphic designer and still do. I worked as a fashion stylist. And so I kind of was more involved in those worlds prior to getting involved with this project. But we did a lot of like kind of short form things, like I mentioned, music videos. One of the first like films, I guess you could consider a short film we made, I think it was maybe about 10 minutes long. Sarah and I made while we were living in San Francisco. We had moved there from LA together when I got into an art school over there.
Wow.
And we love San Francisco. We had this magical experience in the city living there. And we ended up doing a documentary on Gay Pride Parade.
Wow.
And we basically just went around. It was with a tiny little camera. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Zoom cameras, but they're these old handheld cameras. This was about, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago, that had HD footage, and it's like the size of a cell phone now.
Wow.
And so we filmed our first little documentary on that, and we went around, and she was filming and I was interviewing people, and we just went around asking people what love meant to them. And we just interviewed, I don't know, a bunch of people around the Gay Pride Parade around San Francisco, and then cut it into a little film. And it actually ended up playing in some little film festivals, and it was really cool. Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of, I think, our documentary world life.
That sounds like an amazing film. I definitely want to watch it. Is there a way we could watch it online?
Yeah, actually, I think it's on my website at hollirae.com. You can watch it. We have it on Vimeo. It's called What Does Love Mean to You?
Okay, cool. So now the big project, the Goddess Project. Why don't you tell us what the film is about?
The film is about women across America and talking to them about what they're most passionate about in life and what drives them to get up every day. Basically, as we grew up, myself and Sarah, always looking for role models, kind of looking to the magazines and TV and movies to help us figure out, what direction we wanted to go in and what kind of women we wanted to be when we grew up. And never really saw ourselves reflected in that, and also just saw like a lot of stereotypes with women, you know, women being over sexualized and just kind of put into these sort of limiting boxes and roles. And just kind of one thing led to another, but it was accumulation of a lot of different moments and realizations. But as we both grew older and, you know, started becoming best friends and creative partners and working together and making stuff together, and while at the same time meeting all these really amazing women because we were in a new city, and you know, kind of blossoming into our 20s, like just kind of getting out into the world and meeting all these different people that were really starting to inspire us, and really multifaceted women that just like had jobs that we had never even heard of before, or, you know, were moms and had other jobs too. And just kind of, or maybe they were just moms and that was like, they, you know, had these really creative ways of how they wanted to raise their kids. And we just started to meet all these really interesting people. And we're like, wow, there's so many different types of women out there doing so much cool stuff and making amazing contributions to society, but there's not really anyone telling their stories, and we can't really find the inspiration we're looking for. So we kind of decided that we wanted to try to make a film, and it went through a bunch of different incarnations of like what that was going to look like. Like at first we thought, oh, maybe we'll partner with other filmmakers around the world to get like a global perspective, and we'll each film ourselves and our lives and our friends. And then that kind of shifted to saying like, you know, it's really hard kind of to work with people remotely, and maybe we should just film people ourselves, but we don't want to just film people in California, and we don't want to just film our friends. We want to get diverse perspectives and people that are different from us. So that's kind of when we decided that we wanted to take a road trip and interview as many women as we possibly could. And one thing led to another, but during this time when kind of we were brainstorming and we were looking at the media and kind of feeling disappointed at the lack of representation. And at that same time, just to backtrack, I guess, Sarah had been working when we first met and started making art together as a film editor at the NFL for sports. Yeah. And she didn't really enjoy it. It was just kind of like a job that she got out of school, and always wanted to like make something more creative and with an impact. And we both had that same vision of like making art that was going to really impact people in a positive way. So when we did move to San Francisco together, it was because I had got a scholarship to go to an art school out there. I won this competition that I entered. And so when we started making stuff together, it was just like, you know, kind of like opened up all these new possibilities for like what we could be and what we could do. And while I was in school, I was kind of being shown, you know, one way of making art, which was very focused on marketing and advertising and sort of fashion and beauty industries and how to sell people products. And I was really getting like a behind the scenes look at how all of that works, and also working as a fashion stylist and kind of and dealing with models on set and people behind the scenes, and seeing like how insecure even models were, you know, and like they're kind of the women that other women are told to look like or expected to want to be like. And just getting like seeing all those pictures and all the accumulation of this together at one point just started to make us say like, you know what, women out there need more diverse role models, and they need more multifaceted women to look up to. And, you know, let's do something about it. And I really came to a point where I realized I love going to school, I love learning, but I don't want to just learn how to sell people stuff. And a lot of times that ends up playing on people's insecurities. Like, you need this in order to make you feel, you know, better. And so I just said, one day I was like, I think, I need to drop out of this school. And that day is the day actually we decided that we were going to actually commit to making the Goddess Project.
Wow. That's amazing. So, for those who haven't seen the Goddess Project, how many women did you talk to in the film? And what were kind of some of the stories?
Yeah. Well, we talked to about a little over 100 women. We went through 30 states. We spent almost 7 months on the road. We went, I think it was like a little over 10,000 miles. So we logged a lot of hours. We end up having 300 hours of footage actually at the end of it.
Wow.
But we went about this film in like a very DIY grassroots way. So because neither of us had ever made a feature film before, the whole project started just to go back to that initial moment of when we said, okay, we're going to do this. We didn't know how, we didn't have money. We didn't have savings. We didn't even have cars because we lived in a city and took public transportation everywhere. And we're like, how are we going to do this? And I remember we gave each other a pinky promise. We're like, we're going to, even if we have to hitchhike around the country, we're going to do this. We committed to it that much, where we just really felt this deep calling, this was something that we needed to do. So around that same time, I had seen a fashion brand that used Kickstarter, the crowdfunding campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, maybe we can do this for a film. So we end up actually making a teaser and putting it on Kickstarter and raising almost $15,000.
Wow.
Or no, I'm sorry. It was a little over $10,000. I always get the figures because we've had multiple crowdfunding campaigns, but yeah, even so, $10,000. It was
Still
amazing. It was just really confirmation, because we got donations from, a lot of our friends and family, but also people we never met, people in different cities and different states and different countries. So we were like, wow, the world wants this too. It really gave us even more confirmation to do this. So that's kind of how we got to the place of being able to hit the road. And right before that, we had another serendipitous moment, which you can see in the film, but a stranger ended up donating a bus to us.
Wow.
So all these little things happen along the way that really confirmed, okay, I guess we're supposed to be doing this. But yeah, once we were on the road, we went about it really serendipitously. Like I said, DIY, figured it out as we went. And we had some ideas of things that we wanted to talk about, but we really wanted to give women the space to share what they wanted to share, what they really felt called to share about their lives, about their experience, about the hardships they've been through, whatever they wanted to share. So it was a really open dialogue, and really, I think, unique in the way that most films, they're kind of preconceived. They have their script maybe set up, or maybe documentaries have a certain types of questions, or they have an idea of where things are going to go. In the film, when they actually cut it together, we really didn't. We just kind of went with it. And so we got so many different types of stories, and that ended up being a really fun challenge in post, in trying to figure out how to put all the stories together and in a way that flowed and was digestible. But yeah, we had women, talking about everything. What we ended up putting in the film, which we kind of deemed the gold, were things that women said and told stories they told that just really gave us chills, or made us cry, or just felt like they were so potent that they were so transformative to us to hear those parts, that we felt like that's what we chose to go into the film. So and we also really wanted to choose themes, that we'd talk to women, kind of asking them, leaving an open end of whatever they wanted to share. So when we realized how many women were talking about the same things, we were like, wow, this is something that needs to be in the film, because all these women are from different states, from different backgrounds, socioeconomic status. You know, they have totally different lives, but they're all experiencing the same struggles, or, you know, having the same epiphanies. So yeah, they kind of talk about a lot of different things, about traveling, about, you know, growing up and getting your period for the first time, about sisterhood, about, you know, kind of the competition between women that has sort of been really sort of pushed into us from American culture and media, you know, commercials and advertising showing like women fighting with each other, you know, or competing for a man or something. And so the film kind of highlights a lot of the negative effects of the media, but then also like solutions that people have used to overcome that kind of background noise that's always in our head telling us we're not good enough, or, you know, we need to be like this or that.
That's amazing. So when you set out to do this film, did you have any other like teammates or people to help you with the filming or the editing or any of the production, post-production stuff?
Yes. So when we initially set out to make the film, it was just me and Sarah. And then we had a friend that was helping us with sound kind of sort of from the very beginning. And then she ended up having a lot of health issues. So she was actually our very first campaign. She was going to go on the trip with us. It was going to be all three of us, you know, going to interview, and I was going to interview people. Sarah was going to be the camera operator, and she was going to do the sound. And then kind of right before we left, she had some pretty serious health issues that she made the decision that, you know, it would be better off for her to focus on herself. So that from then on, actually, 2012 to 2014, it was just me and Sarah wearing all the hats, every single thing in production. So filming, you know, interviewing, editing. I mainly wore the hat of interviewer and sort of outreach, and did social media and design. And then Sarah did a lot of the camera work and editing and technical roles like that. And then when we got back from our trip, after interviewing all the women, we ended up having all the footage and no money left from our campaign. So we were really naive, by the way, to think that we could travel around the whole country and make a feature documentary for $10,000. That's really ambitious. And even though our bus ran mainly off of vegetable oil, so it was free gas, we still had, you know, it still costs a lot of money to travel and to live out of a bus and to make a movie. So when we got back to Los Angeles after our trip, we had another crowdfunding campaign, and that was really exciting because we raised about $50,000 on top of what we had raised before to go into post-production. And because of that, we were able to hire animators and sound designer and a composer and a colorist, and we're able to employ all kinds of women to work on the film in post with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's it like working with an all-female team? Because a lot of times in the entertainment industry and in the filmmaking industry, there's not a lot of women in the industry. Like, there are some women, but it's so dominated by men, I feel, that a lot of women are kind of scared to go into the more filmmaking side, to go into directing or editing or like sound or camera. Like, what was it like working with those people?
Absolutely. That was, you know, a huge barrier, I would say, because we knew from the very beginning that we wanted this film to be by women, about women, because, we saw a lack of representation in, the only filmmakers you ever hear growing up are men, or, the only directors, like you said, mainly are men that you really hear about that get the platforms and the funding to make their movies. But we all know there's millions of women out there that want to tell stories, that probably want to be filmmakers and directors, and they just don't get as many opportunities. So from the very beginning, that was really important to us to say, like, we're going to hire women. And that was a huge part of our campaign, saying, we want to make sure to hire women. And we had a lot of men come to us actually like wanting to work on the films, whether they were composers or animators. We had tons of men
Wow.
saying, this sounds awesome, I want to be a part of it. And we were like, oh my gosh, that is so cool that you want to work on this project. But for this film, like, it's so rare that women get a place behind the camera and speaking roles in front of the camera, even that, and a chance to tell their real stories from their perspective rather than like from a director male perspective. That we really were adamant about that. So that actually added a lot of time to our post-production. We had planned on maybe this film taking maybe like 2 years to make total, maybe 3 with post from start to finish. And it ended up taking about between 5 and 6 years.
Wow.
Just because not only were we figuring it out as we went and, kind of going by the skin of our teeth with funding, but also really adamant about hiring women. So we spent hours and months just searching online to find female animators and editors and colorists. And, because they really aren't as easy to find. There's not as many agents for those kind of people, agencies or companies. And so it added a lot to our timeline, but it was really worth it in the end, because seriously, every single woman that we work with was like, this is so refreshing to be able to work with a female crew, even till this day on sets that I've been in the past, on things I produce, I've really tried to hire pretty much all women almost since working on this, for other projects even. And it's funny, I had a shoot a couple of months ago that I did, and at the end of the day, a lot of the crew left, and they never picked up their checks, like for their payment, and they came back, or some of them texted me like, oh my gosh, I had so much fun on set with all these women that I felt so comfortable that I forgot I was even working. Like, I literally thought I was just hanging out with girls, because there's a lot of power dynamics that happen between men and women on set, unfortunately, just because there is such like an imbalance, and so men are used to pulling all the shots and telling everyone what to do. So, women also tend to, I think, work in a lot more like nurturing, empathetic, collaborative way. So yeah, I think it's been refreshing for people. And I'm really glad that even though it took a lot of time, that we really made a point, because we had such a hard time finding women, we ended up hiring women internationally. Like, we would have loved to work with people in person, but we ended up working with pretty much most of our animators remotely, from the computer, from Skype, from, video chat, just going back, sharing files and making revisions and stuff. And they were all in different countries. So there were 15 of them from all around the world. So that was really cool to kind of add that global touch to having, women contribute from everywhere.
That's amazing. Wow. So when you finally found your team and you finished the post-production of your film, what was it like releasing your film? What did you have to go through? And did you have a big premiere? What happened?
Yeah, so we went through a couple different phases with releasing the film. So when we had initially made our first cut of the film, it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And, you know, we loved it. It's beautiful. We had like a screening for friends and family, you know, to get their feedback, and started sort of doing some test screenings around, and we got a lot of feedback from people that it was too long. Like, they love the film, it's amazing, but it's so much, you know, because most people cry when they watch it. Most people go through laughter, crying, a lot of different emotions, because there's a lot of stories that you never really hear, you know, that like I think a lot of people feel alone in, and then they finally see it on like a big movie screen and they're like, oh my gosh, people are overcome with emotion. Like, they'll come up, you know, crying and shaking and wanting a hug, and because they feel that moved by hearing all these women's really vulnerable personal stories, because it's rare that we kind of see that in mainstream media. But when we first started screening it, we had amazing reactions like that, but also people saying like, you know, this would be a lot more digestible if it was shorter. Like, you know, our attention spans nowadays, they're not that long with how the internet and how fast we scroll through information.
Yeah.
And so at that time we had partnered with like a distributor who was helping us kind of put on some screenings around the country. And after getting that feedback a couple times, they said, you know, this film would go a lot further if it was shorter, and we can offer you money to cut it down. And so we were like, uh-oh, like, we're so exhausted. Are you kidding me? We finally reached the end of this 5-year journey to make this movie, and we've put everything into it. We've invested so much, pretty much sold everything we had and invested our whole lives into making this project. And now that it's done, someone's telling us it's not done. And so that was really hard to hear, but at the same time, I totally understood where they were coming from. And I understood where, you know, when people gave me that feedback, why they said it, because you want to be able to reach as many people as possible when you put so much into something, and it has the potential. You know, you don't want to squander the potential just because you want to contain this piece of art that you made, you know, and to not cut out any woman's story. That was really a hard choice too. So, but we ended up at that point, my partner, Sarah, she did not want to edit the film. She was really, really tired, basically. And she said, you know what? I want to become a nurse. And I was like, oh, and she decided to become a nurse. Throughout the process of making this film, she realized that was the path that she wanted to pursue. And that was like two really shocking things to happen at once, you know, like them telling us that we needed to edit down the film, and then her saying, who she was primarily the editor, saying, you know, no, I want to move on to something else now. So in that moment, I had to make the decision, like, what I was going to do. Do I kind of just let the film, you know, take its own course and see how it goes? Or do I follow the advice of, you know, basically everyone that I've spoken to and figure out how to make the shorter cut? So I ended up learning how to edit over the process of 1 week and cutting down the film, about 40 minutes out of the film. And and then from then on, and I didn't, just to clarify, I didn't take the distributor's money to cut down the film, because they really offered us an insulting amount of money to basically take the film from us from then on, like to own it,
Wow.
pay us to own it. So, you know, I've learned a lot in this process, a lot about distributors in the film industry and how a lot of times people want to take advantage, unfortunately, of like indie filmmakers and people with dreams. And yeah, so I'm really glad I didn't take their offer. I invested my own money into making a shorter cut and learning how to edit and getting it remastered and getting the sound done. And yeah, so since then, I also parted from the distributor and learned how to basically distribute a film myself. From Google and the internet, and and it's worked out really, really amazingly so far. The film is now on iTunes and Amazon. It's screened in movie theaters, in universities, at YouTube headquarters, in prisons, in women's shelters, in all different kinds of cinemas and community spaces in 300 cities globally. And every day there's a new screening of the film booked pretty much. And it's just kind of really spreading right now, very grassroots, with no marketing budget, just word of mouth and yeah, people power. It's really amazing to watch.
Wow. How can somebody host a screening if they want to have one in their hometown?
They can go to our website, which is thegoddessproject.com/host a screening, or you can just go to thegoddessproject.com and there's a button on there you can click of host a screening. And to host a screening, you basically just arrange a license, and we have film screening kits that are based on the size of your audience and the venue type. So if you're just wanting to have like a small backyard screening, we have a film package that comes with a license and all kinds of fun activities and a discussion guide. And then, you know, if you're a film festival, there's a different type of screening kit. And so we have, I think maybe there's 4 or 5 different types of kits, depending on if you're a school or a community space or a movie theater or just someone who wants to inspire people in your own backyard. You can learn all about it on our website.
That's amazing. So for somebody who wants to get into filmmaking, especially a female filmmaker, what advice would you have for her about how to get into it and how to be successful in the male-dominated entertainment industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. You know, I look at people around me that went to film school and they had the money to, you know, invest in an education for film and kind of learn from the masters. And I look at that and that's amazing. And if you have that opportunity, you know, that might be the way you want to go. I don't know. But from my own experience of just figuring it out as I went, you know, we have so many tools available to us nowadays with the internet and YouTube, and it's so accessible to be able to learn how to, you know, you can make an amazing movie now pretty much with your cell phone with how high quality, you know, the quality camera on my cell phone right now is way better than the one we used for our first little documentary short film. And, you know, the camera that we shot the Goddess Project on was like it was around $1,000 or so. So, you know, that's really not that big of an investment to be able to create a movie that, you know, can go all around the world, basically, you know, as a starting point. But what I would say is just, you know, that you're really capable of more than you can ever imagine. And as soon as you start telling stories and doing something consistently, and being excited about it, people will get excited about it too. That's like one of the main lessons that I've learned throughout this process, because I've gone through a lot of ups and downs and trials and tribulations and just moments where I really wanted to give up. And I'm like, this is way too hard. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. And it's really about putting yourself out there and just kind of trying to network as much as you can and show up wherever you can and just be excited about the work that you're doing. And you'll find other people that are excited about it too and that want to help support you get there.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's some great advice.
You're welcome. Yeah, I hope that it's helpful. I know, I mean, while it's so much better nowadays, and I feel like every year we're getting closer and closer to like equality in different industries, we still have a long way to go. And I know there's still so many barriers for women and for all people, just anyone trying to pursue their dreams or having a big goal, you know, of making a film. Filmmaking isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you can do it. You just have to develop perseverance and belief in yourself.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. More amazing advice. How can people find you on like social media if they want to reach out, if they have a question about the Goddess Project or about filmmaking?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Holli, Holli, Rae, Rae. So you can find me on there. Feel free to DM me. That's probably the best way to reach me. And also on Instagram at The Goddess Project. Or you can go to my website at www.hollirae.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on this episode to talk about your filmmaking and your amazing film that everybody should go watch. Like she said, it's on iTunes. Go watch it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
So yes, that was my interview with Holli. I enjoyed doing it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Make sure you go and follow her on social media. She's just so amazing. And if you can, go and check out the Goddess Project. It's on iTunes. Like she said, you guys can go and watch it. It's so amazing. And if you host a screening with your friends because of this podcast, make sure you tag her and me at BT Girl Boss Pod so we can see it.